It is really good to see you all this morning. If you haven't yet, take a moment to look at the people around you. Really, take them in. It is miraculous that human beings do this thing that you all do. How y'all doing this morning? Yeah? You feel like you're doing pretty well this morning. My name is Reverend Arif Mamdani. Yes, I share a last name with Zoran, newly elected mayor of New York City. No, we are not closely related, although many of my family members are still researching it, trying to figure it out. So I've been an ordained UU minister since 2021. I've been serving UU churches in a ministerial capacity since about 2017. Earlier this year, I stepped away from congregational ministry to pursue training in chaplaincy. And I, since August, have been serving as a chaplain resident at North Memorial Hospital. This morning, I'm mostly coming to you wearing my hospital chaplain hat. As a hospital chaplain, as someone who provides spiritual care, I get to see a little bit of everything. From trauma calls to the emergency department, to patients and their families on our ICU floors, to folks who have graduated from the ICU and are moving toward rehabilitation of some sort, to your run-of-the-mill sick people in hospitals, to overnight pages to support families who have lost loved ones. I spend my days and my nights alongside people having one of the worst days of their lives. And I have the privilege of accompanying them in making sense of their lives in a time that can often feel pretty bleak. More than comfort, more than support, as a chaplain, I get to be alongside folks as they claim agency of the human spirit and make choices about what their hospital experience means to them and how they want to live, whether that is for another few hours or another 30+ years. What I mean here is that I have the honor of spending a good chunk of my waking hours in a place that is overflowing with all of the human emotions you can imagine. And yeah, a whole lot of gratitude in the mix too. So that's the backdrop for my talk today. About 11 years ago, my dad died. It wasn't exactly a surprise, but it was still shattering the way I think it often is when one loses a parent. In the immediate aftermath, one of my cousins suggested a gratitude practice for 3 of us who are particularly close. And so for the next month, we would text each other to share where we had felt gratitude that day. This was my first encounter with intentional gratitude practice. I can't really say whether it was a strange time or not to be practicing gratitude. I was in a fog of grief. But what I noticed, what I remember, is that in the first few days and weeks following my father's death, many people noted to me or with me things about which they were grateful to or for my dad. One cousin remembered his saying, "There's nothing so important that it can't be laughed about." I don't actually remember his saying that, but she did, and she shared how it consistently helped her weather challenges in her life. Another cousin remembered my dad saying that if you can be happy with what you have, you will have plenty. And again, I have no recollection of his saying this, but she swears that he did. One of the most surprising was hearing from my high school girlfriend, who I had not heard from in decades, yet through the power of social media, she heard that my dad had just died. She reached out to express her condolences and to tell me that she was forever grateful to my father for instructing her in the proper use of ibuprofen to ward off period cramps. He was a doctor, so he knew something about this, and apparently, unbeknownst to me, he had told her in the kitchen of the house I grew up in to start taking Advil a day or so before the onset of her cycle. She shared that this had completely, radically changed her life, and that she would be forever grateful, and that she thought of him every time she took Advil before her cycle. I had no idea. I guess we never really know the ways in which we impact those around us, do we? I think I learned something in those stories about the gratitude that my dad embodied and how it impacted those around him. And for me, that month or so of gratitude practice, I wish I could tell you that it transformed my grief. It didn't. It also didn't lead to a new understanding of my dad or some big revelation about our relationship. It did not do anything grand this month of practice. It was actually probably a little more than a month. But as I've learned since that first period of intentional practice, gratitude, engaged with attention and intention, can do some pretty profound things in and for our lives. Now, being a good Unitarian Universalist, when I sat down to prepare for this talk, I did some research. Don't worry, not too much. Just enough to offer a couple little nuggets for those of you that are factually inclined. And here's what I learned about gratitude. First and foremost, gratitude is not just really big thankfulness. This is kind of riffing on Mel Robbins and a bunch of other psychologists. Mel Robbins is not a psychologist, but she quotes them. Just need to be clear. So Mel Robbins noted that gratitude and being thankful are completely different things. I feel like she put it really well. To riff a little bit on what she said thankfulness is transactional. When we're thankful for something, it's transactional. Someone holds the door for you when you're on your way in somewhere. You're thankful. Somebody pours a cup of coffee for you after this gathering. You're thankful. Gratitude, on the other hand, is something that we experience through no action or exchange whatsoever. It's not based in the transaction, which means that gratitude is fundamentally anti-capitalist. Mel did not say that. That's me. Psychologists, and incidentally, the story that we just heard, so clearly rooted in gratitude. Psychologists say that gratitude is contextual and that it is both a state and a trait. What do they mean by this? It is appreciation for what is valuable and meaningful to oneself, and it is also a state of being, a general trait of appreciation. So it is a moment in which you feel something, you feel gratitude, and a general orientation toward life. And as you might imagine, practice cultivating an experience, a state of gratitude, inclines us toward developing and living more with a trait of gratitude. Right? We become what we are practicing. This sort of makes sense. Riffing on Ross Gay a little bit, practices that evoke gratitude, practices that incite gratitude in us also incite a more general trait of gratitude that in itself incites us and those around us to more gratitude. Just think about that for a minute. If you are a nerd about regenerative practices in agriculture and land use, if you groove on anything that creates a virtuous circle, let me tell you that gratitude is like the OG of these practices. And it has another virtue too. Gratitude decenters us. I want to break that down a little bit for you. Remember what I said earlier about gratitude being non-transactional? I want to propose that gratitude might be and this is potentially a somewhat provocative notion, gratitude is the secular equivalent of the theological concept of grace. Yeah, right? That's what I said when that thought popped up. I was like, wait, we got to work this out. Now, I should probably locate myself a little bit here before I start talking about God and theology. I was born into a dogmatically anti-religious family where Hinduism and Islam were the religions in which my parents were raised, in which they both turned their backs on those religions as soon as they could. All right? It's a move that I suspect is familiar to a lot of folks in this room today, right? I mean, that's a good chunk of who Unitarian Universalism is, right? We are people who have come out of traditions that did not meet us where we needed to be met, that did not point us toward where we needed to be pointed. So then why on earth did I go to seminary? It's a great question. So for this morning, here's one of the reasons why. I think God is one of the most fascinating concepts that humans have ever developed. I say that, and I feel like I need to note that if I was publishing this manuscript, the word God is in lowercase letters, and it's got a footnote next to it saying that the God that I'm talking about uses they, them pronouns. As one of my teaching ministers when I interned at Unity over in St. Paul would say, Rob Eller Isaacs would say, we also don't believe in the God that you don't believe in. All right? But really, y'all, I am fascinated by the way that humans have over time harnessed the idea of God to do all manner of good, and yes, all manner of atrocity too. I'm fascinated by the anthropology that is implied in what people have said about God over time and what it tells us about what mattered to those people. I'm fascinated by the tendency of humans over time and space to enter into relationships of faith and devotion to something that is treated in practice like a God, whether that be notions of God itself or of nature or the universe, or the marketplace, or money, or drugs, or alcohol. Human beings seem to have this tendency to make gods out of all manner of things. And while the specifics vary from place to place and culture to culture, there are absolutely discernible resonances and commonalities. One of the biggest, one of the most interesting of which is, at least to me, the tendency of humans to take credit for things we had nothing to do with. Christian theologians call this idolatry. We might call it egocentrism. So back to gratitude. Grace and gratitude cuts through all that noise. Theologically, grace functions as a stop sign for the human tendency to get a big head about how cool we are. In Christian theology, grace says you didn't do that. God did. Not because you're all that, not because you are so special, but because God, through no action of your own, bestowed this goodness upon you. Now, this might be more God talk than y'all have heard in a while. But bear with me here. I feel like I have Anthony Pinn perched over my shoulder. Some of you know who I'm talking about. If you don't, look him up. Here's what I'm saying. Whatever the theology says, whatever the beliefs about God say, whatever the metaphysical truth is or might be, the anthropological move is a brilliant one. It is brilliant, and I think it's revolutionary. When we unpack the anthropology under the idea of grace, taken seriously, it looks at the human tendency toward aggrandizement and says, buddy, slow your roll. And we don't have to look all that far, do we? To see the many ways humans in this country are inclined toward aggrandizement and overreach. You all were chuckling about the king. The king who liked his presence. There's a pretty good chance we were all thinking about the same person. I can't help but think about our president. I can't help but think about the tech bros in Silicon Valley. I mean, take your pick, right? The examples are all around us right now. As humans, we have a tendency of getting out of balance, believing that we are the center of the universe and that everything is about us. And apparently, we have been doing this for several thousand years. So much so that our ancestors said, hey, we need to get out of our heads and remember that there are forces far larger than we are that govern our lives, and it would do us well to remember that. Grace and gratitude do this. Grace points us toward God. Gratitude does not take a position on God. But gratitude says it isn't about you, and in this they agree. We are surrounded by gifts that we did nothing to earn, and which, if we are paying attention, push our ego selves to the side. Gratitude, and grace too, reminds us that we are a very small part of the universe that even now is busy doing what it does. And some of that, what it does, is showering gifts upon us if we have the means to perceive it. Gratitude is not transactional. It is not about you and what you deserve or have earned. It is not about your worthiness or your exceptionalism in any regard. Gratitude points our attention toward gifts in our lives that we receive for no reason whatsoever, and certainly no reason that we brought about, not even by practicing gratitude. Hang out with that one for a moment. So easy for toxic, what is that stuff called? I'm forgetting it. The theology that says that good things happen because you're a good person, and if bad things happen, you deserve it.
Prosperity gospel.
Thank you, prosperity gospel. I am practicing gratitude, therefore good things happen. No. No, it asks us to get out of the way, to realize that we're not the center of the world. So how do we do this? What does it look like to practice gratitude? Well, I am sorry to say I do not have anything fancy for you here. The practices of gratitude are more or less what you think they are and what I started with. There's no magic practice here. You make time at least once a day to note where in your day, in our days, we experienced gratitude. You can do that in a journal. You can do that on social media. You can do that via text with your friends. The actual act is about as hard as any other spiritual practice is, which is to say it's not that hard at all. The actual act. It's kind of a piece of cake. The magic is in the practice. And so, First Unitarian Society, I want to invite you into a practice for the rest of this month. And given that it is the 16th and we are about halfway through this month, perhaps into the next month too. But first, I want to share a few more things with you about why I want you to take on this practice of gratitude. So remember that gratitude is a state and a trait. And that states of heart and mind, states of spirit, are states that we can cultivate through practice. All right? When we do this with gratitude, some cool things happen. Research shows that, these are quotes from the research, gratitude helps regulate the nervous system by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, fancy word for the rest and digest state, while down-regulating the sympathetic nervous system. This is your fight or flight. All right? Let me say that again. Gratitude helps to regulate the nervous system by leaning us more toward the rest and digest, the sense of safety, and reducing the amount that we are habitually hanging out in fight-flight. All right? It doesn't change your body's capacity to respond appropriately when fight-flight is needed, just to be clear. This shift leads to a calmer state by decreasing stress hormones, improving heart rate variability, and lowering activity in the amygdala, which is responsible for the stress response. The only other thing I know that does that is regular exercise, and gratitude is a lot nicer to your joints. Consistent gratitude practices can create lasting changes in our brains. Consistent gratitude practice retrains our brain to seek out positive experiences and inclines us toward an overall sense of well-being. Over time, this rewires our brains into a state where we rest in what is well with us and in our lives. Our heart rate stabilizes, digestion improves. Now really think about that for a minute. Digestion improves from practicing gratitude, as do markers for inflammation in our bodies. All that just by pointing our attention toward what we are grateful for. So here's my invitation to practice, your homework, if you will. Pick 2 people, perhaps 2 folks sitting right near you, for a total of 3. Exchange phone numbers, email addresses, whatever you will. Create a little group of 3 and agree on a time by which each day for this period of practice you will send each other one thing that you were grateful for that day. Just one. Let me break that down a little bit for you. Don't do this on your own. How many of you have said, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week? How many of us do it? It's way too easy, right? We get busy, we forget, oh, I'll be grateful tomorrow. Boy, I'm so grateful that I don't have to, right? It's way too easy to phone it in. But why not 2 people? Maybe some of you are partnered, married, what have you. I'll just do it with my spouse, it'll be great. We are so darn polite here in Minnesota. We are so darn polite. Y'all have seen this happen. I know you have. Well, they didn't send me their gratitude, but they must be busy. So I'm not gonna bother them. While also hoping that they don't call me out when I forget. The 3rd person is there because on any given day, one of the 3 of you is very likely to remember. One of the 3 of you is very likely to nudge the other 2. And let's be honest, if you can, pick one person in that group of 3 that is the straight-A student. You know who I'm talking about. You know exactly who I'm talking about, right? The person that always turns their assignments in on time, and it's just like, harness their diligence. Harness their diligence. Pick your group of 3, folks. Pick your group of 3. Set a time each day and for the rest of this month and maybe into December. Share your gratitude. And then see what happens. I bet you'll be grateful that you did.